Welcome to survival horror.
Oh, that's so embarrassing.
That's
dude.
really embarrassing. Hello and welcome to OMG Older Millennial Gamers. My name is Brian Olivier, and with me, longtime friend, compatriot, high school buddy, and fellow nerd, Matthew Lotharius. And we are a couple of older millennials and gamers, hence the title.
I prefer to think of seasoned, actually.
Seasoned millennial gamers. Maybe we should be SMG.
Oh, Jesus.
You know what?
We can leave it. Leave it for now.
Let's just leave it OMG.
Yeah.
OMG is a conversation podcast about video games. Largely, we're going to talk about older stuff. We will talk about newer stuff, but we just have been gaming for 30 plus years.
Oh, God, long?
Yeah,
long.
It's been that long. And we just kind of want to share with everybody. So welcome to the show. Our goal with this podcast is to kind of go back through a bunch of games that we've played and talk about them in a way that allows us to relive them, but also really talk about the things we really liked about them.
Get a little bit of reflection going on there, I think.
Yeah, a little reflection. There's going to be some categories, but ultimately, we're just going to have a conversation about games and stuff that we liked, and hopefully you people will enjoy listening to it. So, yeah.
What's on the docket now, then?
On the docket. So, the very first game we're going to talk about, and I think it's kind of appropriate because it's October.
Oh, yeah.
And we all know the major holiday that shows up in October, and that's National Bread Awareness Month.
Oh, I thought that was New England Clam Chowder Month. That was this month.
You know what? You might be right. Okay, so
Get the Google out.
Let's get Dr. Google to take a look. No, it's Halloween month. It's Spoopy month. So we're gonna start with what many consider the genesis of the survival horror genre, Resident Evil.
Oh yeah.
Probably break here for like a clip or something.
Sure.
If not, I can just cut it out.
Yeah.
Whatnot. So, Resident Evil 1.
Oh, the original.
The original, yes.
Oh, man.
We're not talking remakes, not yet, but hopefully someday, if this podcast survives that long.
Oh, I was talking about me, my lifespan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because you might not have a game release to tide you over. It could be. So if everyone would like to contribute to Matt's living fund, he's just opened a GoFundMe.
Oh no.
For sustenance.
You mean the American Health Plan, right? Too political. Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna try to keep politics out of this, except when it's funny. So,
right? Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're gonna talk about Resident Evil 1, and we're gonna talk about the original. And
hit me up, man. Hit me up, Brian. What you got? What's the big draw? What was the thing that sold you on Resident Evil the first?
I want to say that the thing that sold me on Resident Evil the first was...
Did we describe what it is? I mean, like you said, it's progenitor to survival horror, right? And this came out, 1996, I believe?
96. Could be. I feel like I had the information at the moment, and now I don't.
Well, we'll go with that for now. But I mean, this was like the heyday of the PlayStation 1. This is like when it started, hitting its stride. I believe it was Resident Evil. It was, for me especially, it was Final Fantasy, Wipeout, Jet Moto.
Jet Moto.
These were the games that made me go, hey, we gotta get this system. And by we, I mean, Dad, please, oh God, please. I've mowed the lawn so many times.
Yeah, Resident Evil did come out in 1996, which is actually it was I have to confess, I didn't actually play Resident Evil the first until after I had played Resident Evil the second.
Sacrilege.
Yeah. See, I didn't get a PlayStation. I didn't get a PlayStation until our junior year of high school.
Oh, okay.
Well, my junior year of high school. I keep forgetting that I was a year ahead of you.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it was my junior year of high school. It was actually in 1998 that I got my first PlayStation. I bought it with the money I made from my first ever job working part-time over the summer.
Oh, yeah.
And I got it so I could play Final Fantasy VII, I could play Resident Evil 2, and then after I played Resident Evil 2, everyone's like, oh, dude, you should have played the first Resident Evil.
Should have played the first one.
And so I was like, okay. So then I bought the first Resident Evil, and I was like, wait a second, hang on. So for me, my first experience with Resident Evil the first was after I'd played Resident Evil 2, where they had already made a whole bunch of improvements that they didn't have from the first game. But one thing that was really cool, though, was that because Resident Evil 2 takes place after the first, I didn't feel like I needed to have played the first game when I went back.
Yeah, being able to jump into the series, I mean, that's handy too, because like, people might catch it like later on down the road, and I hate it. I especially hate it when I see like movies and stuff where you have to know what happened before, or you're lost, or they make the assumption that you have all the information. So that's good that was your experience on it. I think a friend of mine rented at the Blockbuster, right? Rented a copy of Resident Evil 1, and I saw that, and I'm like, this I have to get. Also because he was hogging it, and it wasn't you, it was a different friend of mine. That's right. You couldn't have been you because you didn't get it until after the fact.
That's right.
But man, I was sold, and it was weird actually. Comparing to the second one, I actually fell in love with the whole full motion videos, the campy acting.
Yes.
Oh, that sizzle reel at the beginning.
Man.
You turn the game on, you hit the start menu, and no, wait, there's a dog runs after a guy. He's like, oh no.
Yep. He runs after
it's Chris, I think.
I think it's the same guy who played Chris, but it's not. I don't think it's supposed to be Chris, the actor. I think it's actually supposed to be the first guy you find in the mansion with the first zombie, and I can never remember his name.
So many.
Rupert. Actually, it might have actually been Kenneth.
Fredrickson.
Enrico.
Hey.
That's Alpha Team leader right there. Enrico. Well, they were progressive back in the mid-90s.
We're not going to do like a rundown, play-by-play, though, I don't think, of the game, right?
Well, actually, what I would like you to do, if at all possible, I'd like you to kind of give us an overview of the story of Resident Evil 1, if you could take us through the beats.
All right. The main hook, which I enjoyed too, was that it starts off a little bit like a scary game. I hadn't really played many of those kind of things. Those usually action games that I would see. And the beginning, theme was like, hey, we're looking into people being eaten in the woods. And I'm like, this is creepy. And then, you have a great, full motion video, actual actors.
We'll talk about that in a second.
It's amazing. They are looking for one of their other teams who had previously gone into the woods to investigate, and they're gone.
And who are these people?
So this is Bravo Team, I believe, is the first one to go in, weirdly enough.
No, Alpha Team is the first one to go in.
Was it?
It's the Special Tactics and Rescue Service, otherwise known as STARS. Oh, yes. One of the great, just acronyms for a group ever.
Yeah,
it's so great.
It's so ridiculous.
So STARS Alpha Team goes in.
Yeah.
They go missing, and then they send in Bravo Team, which is who we pick up with.
And these are our lead characters.
Yes.
And then to avoid giving a complete play-by-play, stuff goes downhill quickly, and they end up running to a spooky mansion, and then the adventure begins. And what a ride it was, because I was like, okay, spooky mansion, okay, there's zombies, puzzles, and then the further you play, you're like, wait a second, this is all a science facility, and then you start kind of cracking into the mystery. It turns out it's a kind of a case of science gone wrong,
or horribly right, if you are the
franchise owners.
If you're the evil corporate types who like to get around those, treaties and all that.
Right.
Yes, science gone wrong. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and then, and the only real solution is friendship and rocket launchers, I think, was the main takeaway.
Friendship and rocket launcher.
At least that's what I got. I'm pretty sure like scholars will look on that.
You know,
and say,
I want to say like a PSM like blurblet on the game was Resident Evil, friendship and rocket launchers.
Yeah.
I want to say that was an actual thing. Don't quote me on that.
my main
Don't quote
takeaway.
me. Yeah, that was definitely my takeaway.
But I mean, like really, like the adventure on the way there was, discovering like creepy murders, kind of, because you discover your cohorts piece by piece along the way. Pun. Excuse the pun. And it really brings this great sense of tension. Of course, the zombies will eat your face. So I hope you save the game.
Got to use those ink ribbons, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that's like your currency there. It's like how many ink ribbons you got?
Ink ribbons in an old ass typewriter.
Yeah.
As far as save systems go, I mean, it's not the worst.
It's thematic though. It's thematic.
It's
I feel
very thematic. Old spoopy mansion.
Yeah, why
old
not?
typewriters. Yeah,
It's
it makes
fitting.
sense.
It's fitting. You get a little bit of like The Shining kind of going on. Like the big building with all the different rooms of horror, as it were. But
yeah,
I mean, I enjoyed like the pacing of it. Like I felt like they broke up the action, the scares with puzzle elements and exploration. And to me, I was like, this is amazing. So I mean, win-win. And again, the further you go in the mansion, the more. I wouldn't say obtuse the puzzles would get. I mean, some were kind of funky, but it was your general fare of the day, right? Like almost like the same like with PC games, like fetch the item, use all the items in your inventory till you get the right one. But they had some good systems to alleviate that. It made it a lot more accessible. In my opinion.
It's funny when I think of the puzzles in the game, because the Spencer mansion, the mansion that you find yourselves in, apparently was built by a heavily neurotic or very paranoid individual.
Well, you're digging into the lore here. This all this stuff wasn't even established until after Resident Evil 1. Would you believe it was just like
that's
spooky
true.
Mansion front? It was science facility, and then they filled all that in.
That's very true. It's really hard to know if, very easy to know if Capcom was really planning to have like a series out of this.
I think the answer was no.
The answer was a giant, big, fat no.
And then, as they went along, right, like production value shot through the roof. But even as a first outing, I thought it was really well done. Again, like the contemporary at the time, I don't think they had anything else that really did it. Plus, again, like you said, as the title implies, like survival horror, you're doing some elements of survival in that you have to juggle ammo, health items, puzzle elements in very tight corridors. Which I think
tight corridors.
Mostly a limitation of the system at the time, and it was great, like beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds, like that whole like Mavis Beacon era graphics, which is really nostalgic for me. Like I see that and I'll go, oh yeah, this is comfortable. It's like watching an old kind of cartoon you used to like.
Well, the fun thing that I noticed, especially going from Resident Evil 2 to the first Resident Evil, going in reverse, was how bright and colorful the interiors of the Resident Evil 1 location were. Like, the mansion is very well lit in the first game.
Go figure.
You can see everything, and that was something that the remake kind of toned down. Particularly that I was kind of a little. I mean, if I had a gripe against the remake, not to to jump way too far ahead, is just that everything all of a sudden looked dingy,
right?
And it's like, I get that they're going for like a horror aesthetic. They're
scary mansion, yeah.
They're definitely trying to get the setting right. But I actually kind of enjoyed having a brightly lit mansion to kind of go through,
able to see everything,
and being able to see everything until you got to the invariable sewer level, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
As opposed to like Resident Evil 2, where the precinct was fairly well lit in areas, but it was so much of the game felt a lot darker. And I think having the pre-rendered environments, it was kind of a necessity to have.
I think they learned from it, in fact, because like again, like as you said, the mansion was well lit. The puzzles were very easy to see. I don't think there ever was a time when I was squinting or had to turn up the brightness on the screen just to see what was going on. But that wasn't terribly important to me. Like already, I was sold on the atmosphere, right? Again, like that intro setup, the fact you got zombies everywhere, and then like you find bodies everywhere. Like to me, that kind of sold the setting, and I guess that was appropriate at the time, right? Because there was not very much else like it. At least to my knowledge. Like, I don't know if there's another good scary game around that time.
Well,
at least for PlayStation.
Yeah, at least for the PlayStation. I think so. So, the characters that you have going through the game, there's 5, I guess if you want to call them main characters.
The cast,
of which only 2 are playable. Well, technically 3, I guess, depending on which scenario. So when you start up the game, you can choose between either playing Stars, Bravo Team Point Man, Chris Redfield,
Fisted, Double Flusher,
voted most likely to punch a boulder in high school.
Highly appropriate.
Highly appropriate. Or you could play, I believe she's the
Master of Unlocking.
She's the infiltration expert, Jill Valentine, the other one, rocking a seriously sweet beret. As a French person, I can highly relate, and it made me smile.
And you say the other person, but interestingly enough, so I believe you picked Chris for your first playthrough.
I did, actually.
Yeah, and I definitely picked Jill. I think this was after Tomb Raider, maybe?
Yeah, I want to say Tomb Raider came out before, even... let's go ahead and look that up real quick.
But the reason being is that, like, my friend who had the disc was like,
same year.
Oh, was it?
It looks like same year. The original Tomb Raider, same year.
Well, I thought it was neat to have a lady protagonist, and also my friend had played the Chris campaign, and he's like, there's 2 campaigns. I'm like, well, let's see what the other one was. So he would play his piece, and then when he would die, I would load up my piece, or whenever we did the trade-offs, he just never let me play, pretty much. So that's what I ended up getting on my own. So I got used to playing as Jill. I had very little idea like how different the game was going to be gameplay wise between the two, because as Jill I was like, okay, I can pick some locks and I have inventory, but then when I got Chris, I'm like, what is this?
Chris can tank, I want to say Chris can tank almost twice the amount of damage that Jill can. Jill has 8 inventory slots, whereas Chris only has 6.
And that's huge.
That is so huge.
Yeah, I mean, so many more box visits.
Oh my goodness.
Mechanics in the game is you have 6 inventory slots, and some items will stack in that, so you can have multiples of the same item. And then you had a magical box within the save rooms. And that box, you can put something in it and get it out at another box at a different location. So then it kind of alleviated the whole, I don't have that much inventory space.
One of the funny things is that originally they were going to design it so that way each of the boxes weren't connected.
Oh, nightmare.
So, or as we like to call the Resident Evil 0 problem.
Oh, no. Is that how it was in Resident Evil 0?
Well, yeah, but instead of putting it in a box, you would just drop it on the floor. And each room could only hold so many items that you dropped.
There was no box.
There was no box, yeah.
Very Matrix, there's no spoon.
There was... although that game also had the benefit of you controlling 2 characters at the same time, so you could always...
split the load. Right?
Yeah, it was easier to split the load, so it wasn't quite as problematic. There were a couple of areas where... I don't know if we're ever going to do Resident Evil 0. Probably not.
It's a shame. I have to dust off my GameCube for that.
Well, I mean, I would, but we'll have to talk about Resident Evil 0. But there were a couple of instances where you get to a certain part of the game, and the game just says, okay, you had all these items in this one location that you had dropped. We'll put them here, so you're not completely screwed without them.
Right.
It's very few and far between. Resident Evil 0 is a really weird game.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure how worth talking about
Let's focus back on the Resident Evil 1.
Yeah, back to Resident Evil 1, what we're actually supposed to be talking about.
Right. Well, the box mechanic was nice because it kind of, again, it's the survival mechanics kind of, it segued into very well, I thought, because you can only carry so many items, and you're like, well, do I walk in here with enough ammo or more weapons, or do I leave a space empty in case I find a puzzle item? You're always going to need it, that one extra space for a puzzle item, but again, going from Jill, who had a rather spacious 8 slots, to the incredibly lacking 6, I was like, what is up with this? And by that point, I had gotten pretty good at dodging zombies, so the whole idea of being more tanky was moot to me. I was like, well, just don't get bit.
Yeah. I mean, it was made very apparent in the Japanese release. For most people that know this game, know that in Japan the game was called Biohazard, and that Resident Evil really didn't mean anything to them. But when Biohazard was originally released in Japan, it was very, very clearly noted that the Jill campaign was easy mode, and the Chris campaign was the hard mode. Because the other problem that Chris has is that there's a couple of puzzles that Chris cannot solve on his own. He needs someone to help,
right.
which is a secondary character in his campaign. The Alpha Team medic, the only survivor of Alpha Team, Rebecca Chambers.
Oh God, best voice acting.
Oh my goodness. Well,
we haven't got into that, have we?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
To eschew, I mean, you can watch a Let's Play of the game, and you can probably even pick it up yourself at some point. But we can glaze over the actual play by plays. Like, what was something that you remember the most? I mean, looking back on all this time, I mean, I know you put in the old game and played it a little bit before.
Yeah. So before we to prep for this and to prep for all of these, my plan is to replay the game as much as possible. Watch videos if I can't refresh my memory, but I have very visceral connections, and this is actually a great lead into us getting into the categories actually. So for each of the games we're going to talk about, we've got a number of categories that we're going to go through, and we're going to kind of hash out a little bit. And the first one you kind of asked me it. My most replayable moment, or my favorite moment of the game. And I've got some contenders here that we could talk about. The first one is that opening cutscene.
Oh, God.
Oh,
so good.
My goodness. It's... If you weren't alive at this point, or if you had not experienced this opening cutscene when it came out on the system, you have no idea how jazzed... you were to see that, because you get the entirety of the intro is in black and white. It's narrated by Chris. He's presented as the erstwhile protagonist of the game, even if you start a Jill scenario.
Best voice acting acting.
Oh my goodness,
on
it's
any
so
screen,
great.
Large or small.
I want to say that literally, when the company that was doing the filming, or Capcom had outsourced to film that stuff, they literally had the first 6 people that showed up
and fit the gender
and fit everything. They're just okay, well, you guys are the only people that showed up, so we're just gonna throw you in here.
That's amazing.
It's awesome.
To me, that intro scene it's so classic to me, because honestly, I was incredibly excited. It was corny, right? The acting's bad. The sound is weird. The cuts are bizarre, and they kept to keep the excitement going. They would do cutaways to a scary monster mouth, which is to me, I was oh, the looming terror. But when I think about it now as an adult, I'm oh wait, they don't have a budget. They just made a head for these dogs. And just kind of opened it up and closed it a bunch.
Yeah, and then they put some weird slime in it, and then shot it super close, so all you see is the mouth.
Oh man!
But we see a Bravo team arriving, and they encounter by helicopter of all places in the middle of a field, which we're supposed to believe is a forest. It's Chris, Jill, captain of the Bravo team, Captain Albert Wesker, with his Iceman haircut and his sunglasses at night
in black and white.
Good. Oh, it was great. Then we had weapons expert Barry Burton with his beard, red hair, and Colt Python Magnum.
Oh, that was the beast.
That was a beast.
The beast gun. I mean, I remember when I got that, I was oh man. Actually, I saw him have it, and then when we ended up getting him, oh god, they killed him, and I was wait, this gun though.
That's that's a thing. I remember. Chris had to find his behind a tiger statue.
As you do.
The other member that was present was Joseph. He, otherwise known as Cannon Fodder.
I believe Red Shirt.
Red Shirt. Yeah, Joseph Red Shirt was his actual name.
Oh, no.
He is immediately killed by dogs.
Yeah.
And
everyone runs away.
And then the chicken shit helicopter pilot, Brad, I get my comeuppance in Resident Evil 3.
Oh, no.
Vickers.
To be fair, if he got eaten by dogs, y'all couldn't have flown out.
Well,
so.
I mean, it's true. He did prove very useful right at the end, and we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
But then
memorable, as far as a memorable part, that was great.
That was so.
This was the era of really terrible polygon graphics. It was you could count the number of polygons.
Oh yeah.
Right, today, you look at it and it's just this smooth face. It looks a sculptor. It's sculpted. Back then, you would go, what are these weird jagged lines? And it's oh, there's 10 jagged lines that make up the frame of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, they made those things work. But you couldn't have that for your sizzle reel. You couldn't have that for your intro. You had to film it.
You had to film it.
And you had their photographs in there as well.
Oh yeah,
like
so
in the menus.
Exactly. Well, you had to personify these people, and it was just easier to upload, an image, a static image, and do that. But after we see Joseph get eaten by dogs, everyone starts running. Brad flies away.
Oh yeah.
They're running.
Best line ever. No, don't go.
We'll get to that in just a moment.
We're getting to it right now.
No, we've got a whole bit for that. Actually.
Okay. But I mean, as far as memorable goes, like to me, in all honesty, like I was super excited. I was totally into it. Didn't realize that the cheese factor was through the roof.
Oh man. Oh yeah. I agree. It was the same for me. It wasn't until like I had played it and came back to it later that was like
second, third viewing.
Oh my god, it's like wow, this is ridiculously cheesy. Because it was
charming. It was so charming.
It was really charming because when everyone got to the mansion, we then had like
the polygon characters.
No, we had the real sizzle reel.
Oh yeah.
Where because then it immediately the music starts ramping up.
Yeah.
And it says and then it says starring with the cutaways all in color now of all the main characters. You've got Chris Redfield
with that rockin' music in the background.
Oh, the rockin' music.
Oh, the original version.
The original version, yes.
Yeah, not the greatest hits version. I think later they
did the greatest hits for the director's cut.
Director's cut.
Has the music in that as well.
They put like scary music, and I'm like, no, dude, no. You're taking it too seriously. No, that's when I started appreciating the cheese. I was like, no, man, we gotta have this rampant.
You gotta turn into the cheese. You can't slide out of it.
Yeah, if you steer with it, you'll capsize.
Oh yeah, it was the funny part. The funny part was that it was also kind of a spoiler too because it's Chris, Jill, Barry, Wesker doing his like hair smooth down.
Yeah, man, like Iceman.
Yeah,
like,
and
right
then it was like Rebecca Chambers. I'm like, wait, who?
Right, like where was she at?
She was.
She does like a bandana Titan thing. Like, oh man, we're gonna get some work done, and it's like, no.
It's like nope, nobody likes you.
What are you talking about? She saved your life.
She saves Chris a couple of times. But if you're playing it, she's the protagonist of Resident Evil Zero, a game that we are not going to be talking about on OMG older. Should be seasoned millennial gamers.
Seasoned OMG.
Yeah, if you played a Jill scenario, you never met Rebecca. She might as well have not existed.
Interestingly enough, though, you never meet Barry so much, and Chris's.
Well, yeah, when you're playing Chris's scenario, no Barry. You immediately get in. It's Chris, Jill, and Wesker. Mm-hmm. If you're playing as Jill, it's Jill, Barry, and Wesker.
Right. Which is the other character is missing.
Yeah, the other playable character is missing, which is really awkward because everyone ran to the mansion at the same time.
The dogs got him.
And and when you play through the game and you find out exactly what happened to that other character, none of it makes sense.
I don't think if you find out what happened, they're just in a room. At the end, yeah,
they're
like, oh hey,
yeah. If
I was put in jail,
it's like I was captured. It's like how were you captured? We literally all ran towards the foyer. We all got in there. You were gone somehow.
And hey, did you try to check the door, like to see maybe peek outside?
Yes,
I like
that was great.
A little Easter egg, no.
I mean,
it wasn't an Easter egg. It was just an egg.
It was an egg.
There was no celebration involved. Like if you tried to open the mansion front door, you get your CGI hand would try to grab the handle, and you'd crack it open, and then out of nowhere, a dog would jump up at the door, and then like you would just yank the door shut.
Yeah,
and it was like a little jump scare. I suppose. That's what it would be jump scare.
I didn't double check, but I believe if you did it a second time, a dog would actually spawn.
No.
In the log.
I don't. I only checked the one time. I was like, nope. Not
it's like no dogs,
In fact, I wonder if you weren't allowed to check it again. It's like, no, I can't go out there. But
okay.
Again, my ironclad memory. For sure.
So another entrant into the most replayable moment is that first zombie.
Yeah.
Like just remembering, like, oh my goodness.
Little cutscene.
When you go to investigate the first zombie, you hear a gunshot after you realize that either Chris or Barry is missing.
Right.
And you're like, oh no. I'll go check it out. And you go through the dining hall, you hear that ticking clock, there's no music. It's like you don't know what to expect. And then you get in there in the hallway behind it, and then you do a scene transition.
Zombie got him.
And then boom, you just see the back of a zombie hunkered over someone's corpse, and you hear a little nibbling, and then a crack, like an egg crack happens.
Oh, come on.
And then you just see like a red pool just come out from where the head was supposed to be. And then you like see the zombie stand up and turn his head all the way. He just turns his head
while crouched.
Just turns his head.
Like, and then you get like the full like, oh god, this zombie looking rough.
Exactly.
And,
now,
something I want to mention, which I noticed as the game, all the zombies shop at the same clothing store. Dirty brown pants and brown jacket.
Yeah.
And very classy, very stylish at the time.
I mean, it was the mid to late 90s at the
Super
time.
topical.
Grunge
Dirty
was
brown.
absolutely. They're all Gen Xers. That's what it is.
Of course, like you level up to the occasional zombie in lab coat.
Yeah.
And those guys were classy.
Well, and then you get to the nadir of zombification, which is all of your clothes immediately melt off and you're just a naked.
Oh yeah.
Like shambling horror.
Yeah, the naked zombies at the very end. I was
the
like,
naked
what?
zombies. Oh,
I don't remember if
goodness.
they had genitalia or not.
No, there was no genitalia. That
I wouldn't put it past it.
I mean,
it's a Japanese game after all. But
it's true. You know what? That makes me wonder what in the remake what the naked zombies were like again, because I don't remember that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pop that in. So that's the one I still have on my PlayStation.
I have that one too. Yeah,
check it out.
Yeah,
but oh man, I actually popped it in right, thinking they could be like kind of like a close. Mm-hmm. No, not even a bit. Because like the intro movie was also here. Here's the thing I want to comment on: this Resident Evil 1. Is a bit of an anomaly in that it was the only game to have full motion capture with actors, not capture but video, right, with actors and stuff, and those actors represented in game. Immediately after, it was all CGI. It was all like the art, the pixel art, and the digital constructions were much better. And I was a little disappointed that we didn't have little actor people in the shows. To me personally, I was let down, and that bummed me out. Like going forward, because I was hoping for more of that kind of cheese factor.
Well, not only that, but like you at the time, like particularly in the 90s on PC, like full motion video games were all the rage at the time.
Sure.
Like you had your Seventh Guest, your Phantasmagoria.
Phantasmagoria.
Yes, that
I wanted
stuff.
to play that.
Oh my goodness.
To me, even to this day, I think I'll have to find like a thing for that, because like that was supposed to be, because actually I didn't hear about that until after I played Resident Evil and was like, I want some more scary video games. And our PC, of course, was junk, so we couldn't play anything on it.
Yeah.
So I never had the opportunity to try that game out, but I'd always heard about it. I believe I read like a review on it, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds great!" Because I want to know the story.
It's got some really interesting things. It also has some very poor things to say. It has a bit of a infamous nature, particularly for one scene that I'm not going to mention here.
I gotcha.
But
I like that era of like the full motion video. It just always has a place in my heart for that kind of thing, because it feels great that there's like they managed to get some actors and. I don't know, that cheese I don't mind. I mean, it's a video game, and I literally, like, if I saw this in a film, like, boo. But like, and it's weird too, because I've actually seen, this is a bit further afield from Resident Evil, but as a franchise, they made films, and those full on blockbuster films, I'm like, meh. But then they also did the opposite, which was fully animated as the cutscenes, like videos, and I was like, ooh, and I was like, they're tolerable they're very good in small doses, right?
Yeah.
It's like having like like a little bit of like a moose truffle after a meal, as opposed to
just that little treat.
Yeah, as opposed to like this whole plate of it. Because watching the whole film, I was like, man, I wish I was shooting a zombie somewhere in the middle, or exploring a mansion, or doing a puzzle. And then it's the same thing with the FMV kind of thing. Like, I liked those in small doses, but when I see like a full-length feature film, like, ooh. But when it's in a video game of that kind of like hodgepodge nature, I really liked it. Like, again, like so I did eventually get a decent computer so I could play 11th Hour, and it was the same kind of thing. They stuck with it.
You and I have a very specific history with the 11th Hour.
And that it was impossible.
It was impossible. It was actually responsible, no joke, for getting me fired from a job.
Oh, because you stayed up too late.
We stayed up too late.
I forgot all about
Oh my
that.
goodness, we were up until 3 a.m. trying to beat Staff at Pente, and it was the worst thing. He kept beating us over and over, and it wasn't until we finally, I think I
you did it.
I did it.
That was you.
It was, oh my goodness.
And you were celebrating, and like, dude, don't you have to work? You're like, I got it.
It's like, no, dude, I got it. I gotta be there in 4 hours. It's okay.
Set.
Like, we live down the street from each other. I'm gonna go grab 3 hours of sleep, get up. No, I overslept because the boss came in like 30 minutes early and wanted to open the store early, and
You were...
And then I was shit canned.
And in the end, Stoff was the one.
Stoff
was the one who won.
Stoff got his revenge.
Like,
so
you could just hear his laughter.
Oh yeah.
You walk in, you're like, "Yeah, take that. I beat you at your game," and then he beat you at real life.
Well, at least he didn't chuck me into the soup.
Oh, the Chuck Rose, chuck him into the soup. Oh.
So getting on with the off
good.
of the categories. So we had that first zombie. We've got the Jill sandwich scene, where Barry saves Jill from the shotgun trap room.
The
Smasher, if she didn't get the broken shotgun to replace it.
Right.
And
which you have to do as Chris.
You have to do as Chris.
And if not, you can just get the shotgun like early on. Like, it's a power weapon. Like, it's a zombie head popping machine.
Oh my goodness, yeah, the shotgun is so good. It's so good. It's basically, once you get a certain amount of shotgun shells with Chris, you just leave the Beretta, and you're like, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah, direct upgrade, really.
Direct upgrade. We also have the introduction of the hunters when you come back to the mansion for the second run through, and you get that little cutscene.
No, it's CGI.
It was a CGI cutscene where you see from the perspective of a hunter coming up from the pool, in through the garden, into the hallway.
I love that too, because like you'd spent time like going back and forth in these areas, dodging dogs and doing puzzles, and then to see this something just rip right through that area in like literally seconds, and you're like, it took me like 10 minutes, and it just opens the door right behind you.
Oh yeah, literally right behind you.
That was a good reveal.
Your character, exactly,
because it wasn't really a jump scare per se. Because you watch a video and then as you realize that it's right behind me. That was so good. That was a pucker moment. That
was definitely, I would say that's a contender for my choice in this.
Yeah.
And then we've got Wesker's fate, because unfortunately the
moral of the story.
The moral of the story: the asshole Iceman looking dude. Apparently he was behind it all.
Behind all of it. Because I love this. No, we gotta talk about this.
Oh my goodness.
Because it's like, as you reveal the unseemly plot of like this science gone mad and like how it's killing people, you're like, oh wait, is that Iceman? Was that Wesker in the background picture wearing a lab coat? And then, the twist is that he was secretly in the lab the whole time. But I'm like, wait, when did he... As a job, did he come down and say, hey, I have a day job, but also I'm going to be the leader of this elite special forces team? It's like, like, how could you do both? There's just not enough time in the day.
Well, not only that, but like, particularly in Resident Evil 0, they try to retcon, or at least they try so hard. God, Resident Evil 0 sucks so bad.
Dude, but you can look at it, the whole game, the whole series is like this big hodgepodge of like kind of smashing the story together. It's definitely a step up from, say, Capcom fighting games.
That's
like there's a air quotes story to all the characters.
Oh come on, Marvel versus Capcom 3.
Just paste it all together. Like, who cares? Like, don't look at it too hard.
So Wesker apparently he's moonlighting in these 3 different jobs where he's a member of the Umbrella Pharmaceutical Company, which is scientist.
And then
he's also he's the captain of the Bravo team of the Special Tactics and Rescue Service.
So
and he's also, as we come to find out later, double dealing with a third corporation behind the back. But in this game, he kind of
comes off as like the main plot twist bad guy.
Yeah, he comes off. He is the plot twist. He kills. He's responsible for everybody that's dying. I
mean, loosely.
Very loosely.
In that part of the project he worked on, unleashed zombies and biomonsters.
In
general.
The translation on this thing was god awful.
No way. Again, I suppose like I'm okay with like how terrible everything is, but I enjoyed it.
No, I mean I enjoyed it. It's just like when I say the translation was god awful, it's just it was not even close to what they were trying to get across. They some of it is just like the way that
it feels to me. I imagine that as transformative then, because I saw it. I don't know anything about the original intent of the Biohazard version, the Japanese release.
Yeah.
So to me, like the American version, I suppose is canon to me. So when you said, "Oh, the trailer was perfect," and I was like, "Wait," but I don't know the original intent.
Well, I mean, I think just the way that it was localized, they missed some of the like colloquialisms and a lot of the grammatical structures. That's more what I'm talking about.
But to be fair, like what you're talking about is when he's like, "Look at behold my ultimate creation."
The tyrant.
Oh, the tyrant. Wears his heart on his sleeve.
Or in his chest. Right outside the chest.
Because that's a good place.
That's a great place for it. Yeah, completely
exposed. pumping in the air there.
Oh yeah, I mean the tyrant. Oh, he's a brick shithouse. He's
about
giant and tall.
It's about as good as having like a giant eyeball that says "shoot me."
Yeah, it's got a giant bright "shoot me" sign pointing right at it.
And he's like, "Get them!" So he'll say that to either Chris or Jill, right? Because this is the end. This is where like you know when all of it comes together, and he's like. Now you will see how awesome I am. Get them, my minion. And then the tyrant's like, nah, bro.
Yep, totally gores him. Totally gores Wesker.
And to me, I'm like, he's done. Like, his skin gets the blood on it, which you get when you die, because you will die a lot in the game. You'll recognize the texture.
Yes, you will.
It'll just paint itself on you. And then they slaps him on the ground, and then a blood pool comes out. And as we know, any zombie that lets out a blood pool, he's done.
Is done.
He's done.
Down for the count.
Right. So I was like, well, it's a shame. We hardly knew ye, Iceman.
Yeah. Oh man, poor Iceman. He shot Enrico in cold blood behind us, and then mysteriously popped up and was like, "Oh, hey, glad to see you're here."
Or he shoots Rebecca.
Or he shoots Rebecca in the vest, which I thought was really funny because
if you don't do things right, she has a vest.
She does, yeah.
If you do things wrong, she does have a vest, and she's done.
She can actually also, because you have a choice with Chris. When you first meet her, she actually asks if she can come with you.
Yeah.
If you say no, then she stays in that room. It doesn't follow you to the guardhouse, which
doesn't save you from the plant.
No, because you have to do it yourself at that point, or you have to. It's
interesting.
It's really bad.
I love that.
I never actually said no because I was like, yes, please help me. I have 6 slots. What can I do with 6 slots?
Right.
I can't play the piano.
Clearly, the most glaring flaw is that you can't play piano.
Chris, he was an Air Force pilot.
Right.
He's a great point man. Special Forces.
Excellent shot.
He can't tickle those ivories.
Can't play the piano.
Jill, on the other hand, she's great at everything. She's the master of unlocking. She can play a piano. She can mix V-Jolt.
8 slots.
8 slots. I mean, that's not a sexual joke. Really, honestly, people.
Oh, you went there.
No. It's trying to keep everyone from going there.
But she certainly can play. She plays Moonlight Sonata.
Moonlight Sonata.
Oh, so haunting. I would call that one of my favorite moments there.
Yeah.
Because when she starts playing it, it's so appropriate. You're exploring a scary mansion, and then you have this kind of. I've never heard Moonlight Sonata until that time. And when I heard it, I was like, the camera would pan over of her poorly animated 12 polygon body going like womp, womp, womp with her like meat hooks. And it just, to me, was like this great moment where I'm like, I'm in this mansion, the scary mansion playing the scary song. And she plays it well. It's funny because if you played as Chris, he goes blanc, blanc and quits. And then the other character, Rebecca, says, let me practice a bit. And to me, it's great because there's literally, 3 renditions of that? Because there's the good one that Jill does, there's the bad one that Rebecca does, and then the adequate one that Rebecca does later on when you come back
she gets better at it, which was actually really cool, and that's one of the things that I liked, because when you're playing as Chris and you leave and you can actually hear Rebecca practicing in the background. It's a great little note. So So we've got that. So what do you think would you say is your most replayable moment out of that? We're going to add the Moonlight Sonata to that category. For me, I would probably say that opening cutscene. That's my favorite moment of the game. Is just seeing that cutscene.
Something you want to see again or something you want to play again?
Well, I mean, I say replayable, but I mean, it's really like my favorite moment to experience from the game. It's that opening cutscene. It sets everything up. Now, that also means that the rest of the game is kind of like downhill from there, but there's so many other good things about it that, to me, I want to see that cutscene.
I'm gonna go the exact opposite with you, and not to be contrarian, but I really liked the very end of the game, right after you throw down with the tyrant, because I enjoyed the gameplay. I mean, again, this is 96 gameplay.
Yep.
So this was cutting edge. That whole drive it like it's a tank. There's turn left, turn right.
We will
forward,
get to the tank
backwards.
controls.
That was how it was, and it worked. It worked really well for the way the game was set up. But throwing down with a tyrant was excellent, and then the of course the bomb going off, so you have a timer when the entire facility blows up. You have to run, and that was so exciting. And then even you don't actually get a timer until near the very end.
Near the very end, yeah.
The pressure was there because you had gone through this whole adventure and you had solved all these puzzles. You had saved people or didn't save people, and now you knew, hey, this is gonna blow up, and I'm about ready to beat this game.
Yeah.
And it was very exciting to me. And so that last moment when you run up, and I didn't know this at the end. Like I was like, oh, I killed Tyrant. Sure. We saw the plot twist. He's Wesker's the bad guy. Kill the Tyrant. Last thing to do, you go get the helicopter. So you put a little flare down, and actually just before you get to that part, you put in a battery to open the door, and the timer turns on. I was like, why is there a timer? Do I have to run somewhere? And I didn't know this because my friend had, I think he went off and played this game, and when I bought mine, I ended up, I never heard about like how the boss fight went, but this was literally the final boss fight where Tyrant comes back again for seconds, and it was like
it's a staple of the series.
Yeah, another one of those pucker moments where you're like, oh crap, and the first time through I did not bring the big heat. I was like, well, I'll take my shotgun with me because I had enough ammo with it,
right?
And I think previously, like the way I do is I hoard like the good weapons, so I barely use the Magnum. And I just like, well, I probably won't need it. We're just gonna go to the helicopter, right?
I think there's only like 24 rounds of Magnum ammo in the whole game. Well, and plus
so
yes, and plus if you're playing Jill, you've also got the grenade launcher you can get from the forests,
right?
Yeah.
And so like to be fair, like or to be specific, I didn't actually have the equipment at the time to handle that boss. The timer went down. He definitely killed me multiple times. And then, like, each time I just pull out all my weapons and go in there. But it was so exciting because, like, I was like, I'm not going to be beat by this guy because I'm at the end. And there's definitely, like, again, the timer element was there. And then you do enough damage to him, and the helicopter, you can hear it overhead.
Brad's flying overhead.
You hear the helicopter over your head. The timer's coming down, like, the last minute. I'm like, oh, no, this ain't good. And then a cutscene, very short cutscene plays where a giant rocket launcher plops on the ground. He's like, use this. I'm like, oh, run over. And it's game over for him at that point. I mean, you can just aim where he's in front of you somewhere. And it turns into another cutscene, and it was very exciting. And this was the first time I'd seen like that whole like triple
oh yeah,
shot.
because they show it to you from like three different angles.
You fire it from your angle, and then the game like stops, and then it plays back from a different angle, and then it gets you the close up of the Tyrant when he's getting nailed by the missile a third time. Bits of him, just nothing but giblets. And to me, that was a very exciting. It
was very satisfying.
Yeah, to me, that was a great like finish for the game.
Nice.
Like that to me, that was I think one of the more replayable moments.
I don't disagree with you. I would definitely say that's a moment that I really enjoy too, because again, the culmination and just like the entire time you're going through, you're feeling like you're barely holding on, and this is a moment where you're up against the big nasty, and then just gifts from heaven. And you just pick up the rocket launcher and like, oh my god, what is this?
I was jazzed that there was one more weapon to try out in the game. I was like, wait a second, because like again, as Jill, it was like pistol, shotgun, grenade launcher, and then I think there was flamethrowers in there somewhere that you could just burn up, but you had
there are, but
disposable kind of.
Yeah, they're
part of a puzzle. You use them and you had to hang them back up again.
They also burn fuel crazy fast.
Yeah, it was like you could kill like a zombie or a hunter with it, and that was about it.
That's it, yeah.
But then Magnum was kind of like the end all, and then there was a rocket launcher. I was like, sign me up. So that was a great little like reward for me at the very end to like blow up this guy, and you could probably kill him without it, can't you?
I don't know.
Actually, I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. I think you have to use a rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Because I think if you knock him down with all of your ammo, he gets back up.
Yeah, he'll like kneel down or something, and that's kind of like what you're trying to do is like stun him, and you can never ever finish him off with it.
Yeah.
But that was I think a really cool like way to like ramp it up continually. Okay. And then the also bonus of like if you do now this is a thing. Is there a category for this? Like things that I thought were really cool about this game was that today's modern games, to get like say unlocks, like that's a thing. Back in the day, you would beat the game and your reward is a cool skin or a new mode or a new weapon. And if you beat this game in a time frame, you could unlock infinite ammo pistol, infinite ammo rocket launcher. And I didn't know that. I think it wasn't years. It wasn't that far down the road, but I definitely like made it a point. Somehow I had heard. I think it was like a magazine, Nintendo, or like a PlayStation magazine was like, hey, did you know Like if you beat the game, you can get, because they have a rating at the end, because your time, number of saves, and a rating. And I'm not sure if it mentions somewhere that you get a bonus for it, but somehow I found out that if you beat it, you get those infinite weapons.
Yep.
And it's ridiculous when you play the game.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
The whole game with like the rocket launcher, infinite ammo, just blowing up everything.
That's something that with like the later editions, I would always strive to do, just because I want to go through and just blow everything up with like the infinite stuff.
That is so good.
It's
right?
so
because,
cathartic.
Like, it's like, yeah, exactly. Like the tension is there. You're always juggling like the ammo. You're juggling health, and then to be able to just obliterate everything in the way, like the fact that sort of thing is now a rarity in modern games really disappoints me.
I agree, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. So we had our most replayable moments, our favorite moments. Yeah. Now I've got a category called "Don't Make Me Do This." What are the moments in this game that you just dread? I'm gonna read all the nominees to kind of keep this going.
Tell me.
I would say the post-hunter mansion. So when you come back in the mansion, you got that great CGI scene with the hunter, but then the only enemies in there are just hunters.
Yeah, that's right. They replace a bunch of zombies. They replace everything with hunters,
and they're a bitch to deal with.
Yeah. They're everything a zombie is not. They're fast, deadly.
You can knock them down with a shotgun, but then you have to like wait for them to get up and do an animation.
Yeah, they have invulnerable frames.
Yeah, invincibility frames are awful with that,
and they'll definitely kill you. And like
they will
if you're in the room and you're have like half health is like orange or yellow.
Yep, if you're in yellow
you could
caution,
just get an instant death. Your head will just fall off. They'll jump over you, and your head just rolls off. And I'm like, oh no.
Yep. So next one is the guardhouse. All of it. I'm sorry, it's.
The plant, right? Or is that
that's the plant area? Yeah,
the bee area.
Well, that's the whole thing. But just from the moment you get into the guardhouse, all the way through, defeating Plant 42, coming all the way back. It's just it's a bad stretch.
Gotcha. Now
there's the art gallery puzzle where you have to push the buttons with all the crows.
I
thought it was a clever thing, but man, the first time I did that, I could not.
You solved the puzzle?
Oh my! I accidentally would shoot the crows, and they'd all attack me, and it would kill me.
Pretty much.
And I was boned pretty much.
It's a death puzzle. I mean, but they had a couple of those in the way. I didn't mind that so much. The guardhouse. It's funny. Like you had mentioned this idea, and I remember other games having some serious slogs, but I feel like the guardhouse actually had enough change of scenery to me. I didn't like the garden area where you had the dogs, because it was literally just like big, like donut-shaped maps that are very slim with dogs in it, and I didn't like having to try to like spend all my ammo to clear them out, which I would do. I got meticulous about my bullet management, but I cleared them all out. That didn't bother me too much because I feel like the scenery changes were pretty enough, were rapid enough, because I liked when you into the guardhouse, it felt like you were in like a cabin in the woods kind of thing, and then there was like the secret like underground lab. So to me that thought was nice, but to add to this list. Oh my goodness, like don't make me like literally scrape through every room looking for the one puzzle item that like is apparently super important to a different puzzle, and I'm like, how is this red book supposed to? Because like you get
the books. Yes.
Yeah, there was books.
Yes.
Like, so I cleared through the area and I'm like, I got this red book. I don't know if I'm gonna need this, so I put it in my storage box, and then I found a case that had a white book in it. You're like, okay, you pull it out, but like to me, having puzzles that don't really readily or seemingly tie in with like anything. Like those drive me up the wall. Like this game isn't so bad at it, but like say Silent Hill.
Yeah, I mean that yeah.
And the other thing was, so I did like this. I hate looking like having to backtrack a lot. But they did do something to alleviate that, in that they had a system on the map where the room would be coded, where if it was red, that was what you were.
That's where you currently were in.
And then green was it had something in it.
Yeah,
and then
or you
blue,
had been in there.
Yeah, you've been, and then blue was just like it's empty now.
Yeah, it's empty.
And to me, that was a great system. So it kind of dialed it back a bit. But there was a couple times like this game. There was a couple times when I was like, "Where am I supposed to go?"
Yeah.
Like, and this is the kind of game that started me into exploring every path in any video game, because you never know what you're gonna miss, and it's infuriating to have your progress completely halted because you didn't check every nook and every cranny, or you didn't see the shine on an item.
Right, or sometimes so like because they would have a sparkle on certain items, but then like
others not.
Or
you're supposed to walk over and know that the lab coat has an item in it, even though like why would you? So these games, and the same thing with the puzzle or hunt and clicker.
Mm-hmm.
Those games of that kind of era where like the worst thing was like you would literally go like I don't know what to do, so you just click on everything in the room,
every single thing,
and then the next worst thing was to click on every item in your inventory and try to combine them with each other. Thankfully, not so much of the combining problems in this game, but they did have a cool mechanic where you would like zoom in and like look at the items. So you had to inspect items.
Yeah,
that would reveal additional information or actual puzzle items in them. So like so you had that red book, but then there was the other book, the Doom books.
The Doom books.
You had to open them up, and inside of them
were the eagle and the wolf medal.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have known.
Very funny thing is that when you actually examine the book, because when you would examine the items, it would show the actual model of that particular item. On the front of those books, it would say Eagle and Wolf of Doom. So like they basically they kind of give you that hint like hey, that's what these are.
Oh man!
But like it wouldn't. But when you examine them, if you did it, it wouldn't change the name of the the books. You just had to like, yeah. It was hidden, but it was there. So
I'm kind of a knucklehead when it comes to certain things. Well, most things in video games. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
But I never caught that bit of subtext.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just playing through it again, that was one thing I was like, oh hey, that's really cool.
Yeah, I guess after the fact looking at it, but
a couple other things I wanted to touch in terms of don't make me do this. The sewer level. Anytime you go into a sewer level, it's the worst thing ever.
Was there a sewer?
Well, I mean, it's under the pool. It's basically a cave. You're dodging boulders like Indiana Jones. It's
sewerish.
It's just the worst. And then And then for me, escaping the laboratory, if only because when Rebecca goes, the klaxon does not stop. Like it's giving me anxiety as I'm listening to it.
Right, that's a problem too, because like depending on how you do the game, there are like discs, MO discs that you have to put around.
3 MO discs.
Yeah, and you can do that after you beat the boss, and you just want to do it before. I mean, knowing ahead of time, like I never had the MO discs the first time around. But,
which means you never saved Chris.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that. I was like, I got away, hooray! I didn't realize you had to save somebody. But like on the second playthrough, I'm like, where am I supposed to put these?
Yeah, the game doesn't really do a good job of telling you that.
I don't mind that terribly. It's weird. There's that balance of like holding the player's hand and then letting them know that they're allowed to like, look around and stuff. Yeah. So I mean, I did beat it because the game swept me up in it, but then I realized I was like, wait a minute, where was I supposed to do those discs? I only had I had the third one. I didn't know what to do with it. But if you don't do it before the alarm goes off, you're sitting there trying to solve puzzles with an alarm klaxon and like exciting music playing, and
it's really stressful. It's really stressful. For me, I'm gonna go with the Post Hunter Mansion or the mansion where all of a sudden now it's full of hunters, and to me it's just like it's the part of the game I dread the most because it's just so hard because
stakes are raised.
Those things can kill you and do kill you very quickly.
And if you're not good with ammo management,
you're boned.
Yeah, you're usually out of ammo.
Like I'm using all of my shotgun ammo, and like when I get the Magnum, I'm wasting at least like 4 or 5 rounds just to insta kill those things.
It's crazy too because like I remember because I would die a lot, and then I have to start the game over because there's occasionally this is the kind of game where if you do not manage your ammo and your health well enough, you can potentially be at a spot where you need health and you have nothing. And you can't get to the next part.
You can make it unwinnable.
Yeah, and it's well, I mean, I wouldn't say that. You just have to play like extremely good to slalom all the hunters to get to that next herb line around.
Man, well, particularly when you're having to go from like zombies to hunters, just
it's a pretty steep curve.
It's the curve goes pretty high after that. Yeah. So, what do you think?
No, I as I explained earlier, like I'm not keen on having to like really like not say pixel hunt, but like finding puzzle elements that are difficult to find, and the fact that you literally have to explore everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. I had gotten used to that. This is kind of the game that made me start doing that. So now, from here on, every video game I play, I feel weird if I don't explore every side path, which it could be construed as padding. But I actually don't mind seeing anything the game has to offer either.
Well, I mean, it definitely helps because it if you're trying to squeeze as much content out of the game as you can by incentivizing a completionist thorough mindset, it helps you get.
But certain games you're like, I don't have time for that. Just let me go to just let me continue the game, the story.
All right, so next we're going to come to what's aged the best. So this is a game that came out in 1996. It is now 2019. It's 23 years ago.
Oof.
What is something from this game that is kind of, as we say, aged the best? It's the most memorable or the most prevalent thing from it. The nominees for this category is the survival horror genre, because this really kind of definitely, if not created, it definitely codified it.
Yeah.
The unintentional comedy that came from all of the hamminess and campiness from like the cutscenes and stuff. Mansions with secret traps. Was this like the apex for mansions with secret traps? Or one of my particular favorites, keys with weird naming themes.
Oh my goodness.
Because in this game you find like no kidding skeleton keys that are named sword key, shield key, helmet key, and armor key.
It's based on like medieval armor. That makes sense. I'll always remember the weirdest one was Silent Hill. There was one that always stuck out to me. It was called Plate of Cat.
Yeah.
And they were like ceramic plates.
Yeah.
But I was like, here's a plate, a dinner plate, and then cat on it. And I was like, this is weird. So to me, that was a little strange. But in this game, I didn't find like the key naming terribly offensive. And it definitely didn't age super great. But I will say, out of those things that you've pointed out, I would actually say the survival horror genre is like the best, because some of my favorite games are in the survival horror genre.
I would really agree. Yeah. And this game really, it kind of did for me, not this one in specific, but this series more so in general, because I played 2 first.
Right.
Really kind of solidified how like, I may not really like scary movies all the time, but I really love to play these like scary survival-y type games because
when the mood is right, especially
when the mood is particularly right. And if the game is is well enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure if unintentional comedy would be like a big win, because unintentional comedy is hilarious and is some of my favorite thing. Unfortunately, when they try to make it intentional, it comes off as forced. And when it's just a hit or miss with the unintentional comedy part. So
yeah, I agree. That's just in there. So now the flip side of that coin is what's aged the worst. The categories, the nominees for this category: the voice acting, the story, which was incomprehensible at best, I think, in terms of the actual lore of the game. Tank controls. And limited inventory spaces.
All right. So I would call 3 of those things a feature.
A feature.
I would call 3 of those things a feature. One of those things a bug. The bad voice acting, I love it. I came back to it, and it's just I know the lines, or I think I know the lines. It's so good.
It's really delicious. The bad voice acting is
what sells it.
I would say
so many quotable lines.
If you're not a video game player, if you aren't, why are you listening to us?
True.
But if you're listening to us and you have no interest to play video games, but you want to know what we're talking about, just go watch a collection of the cutscenes on YouTube.
Yeah.
They're some of the most fascinating and like hammiest things you'll ever see.
Oh, man.
And we'll talk more about that in just a moment.
Oh, we have a category for that.
We do have a category for that.
So, voice acting, amazing. Incomprehensible story, that was par for the course. Tank controls, like, oh man, like this is kind of what would prevent me from going back to play, because like I said, I tried the remake version, not remastered, but the
remake that came out for the GameCube
years
like
later,
early 2000s.
Yeah. Going back to that and trying the controls, they're nightmarish in that you can barely like. It's funny because like it makes sense what they have, because the way the game is set up, pre-rendered backgrounds, which means they had to have a set camera in the room, and some rooms have like 5 camera shifts while you're trying to line up a good headshot on a zombie or trying to peek ahead of you and see what's going on.
Yep.
So I would even put bad camera angles.
The camera, that's great.
Yeah. Tank controls, pretty bad, but doable. The cameras, oh man, like a lot of games that were like, as we were breaking into the 3D world, using polygons and what have you for this generation of games. Those were nightmares. Like I remember like a slick, polished game that felt very much like this, Devil May Cry.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's like the Apex like action version of this.
Well, yeah,
and
I mean,
the camera with that was still a little funky.
it was a little janky. Well, I mean, Devil May Cry did start off as the original Resident Evil 4, and that was
Really?
Yeah, that was originally
It's a Capcom
that was
game too, you're right.
Yeah, that was originally going to be Leon, maybe not with a sword, but like he was definitely going to be blasting.
My.
Yeah, and then
That's-
when they decided to move in a separate direction.
That's
when we
amazing.
talk about Resident Evil 4, like 50 or 60 episodes from now.
60 years from now.
We'll talk about that. But yeah, no, originally that was going to be Leon. Like just
That blows my mind.
In like a weird castle, which is also why in Resident Evil 4 Leon does go through a castle because they had those some of those story ideas they
That
wanted.
blows my mind. But yeah,
So
that's just so funny that I just brought that up out of nowhere. Well, I'm glad you know these little tidbits because
Yeah.
I certainly had no clue.
So you're going to say the camera is
I'd say
the
the
worst. Yeah.
I'd say the worst was the cameras.
For me, I firmly plant my flag in the feature that was the tank controls. There is something so awful. I mean, and again, just replaying it recently, I played the director's cut.
Yeah.
I did play through all of Chris's campaign.
Yep.
And oh, my dear sweet baby Jesus, those tank controls were awful. You move at the speed of mud.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I mean,
And
just like
you're
turning and rotating. For those of you
lines only. Yeah.
Right, and for those of you that don't know what tank controls is, it's the conceit that pressing up on the controller
Forward.
moves your character forward in whatever direction that they're facing.
Depending on the camera.
Depending on the camera.
Independent
of the camera, yes. And then left or right will rotate your character.
Like literally
literally spin like a top, left or right, and
on a turntable. Yeah.
you're on a moving turntable, and then hitting down on the controller on the keypad is you walk backwards. Yeah, no, the control scheme I can understand.
Also, that ties in with like the gunplay as well. Like, you know, I thought that was pretty good that they did make you have to line up the shot, but they were pretty generous about like.
They
the
were
hit.
pretty. It's
like if you were within a certain, it wasn't a big cone, but if you were within a cone, you could still you're hitting.
Yeah,
them.
you were still able to hit them.
But you could. This was neat though. You could aim up and down to do different effects on the zombies. Now with the pistol, it was hard because when you aimed up, you look like you were shooting the ceiling. When you aimed down, you look like
you're shooting the floor. Yeah.
But if the zombie was close enough,
you'd be shooting the legs.
Yeah, and you could not immobilize, but like debilitate the zombies, which is great because then they have to crawl after you. But it was also bad because they could still bite you and they were harder to hit. Yeah.
Of course, though, for those of you that played this game with the shotgun, know that if you press up with the shotgun at a zombie close while aiming, you shoot. You basically pop a zombie's head and they are down for the count. So that's what I was doing when I got the shotgun. Every zombie got
Close
some lead aspirin, and it was great. Their headache was
lead aspirin.
No more chef's kiss. It was great. But I'm going to say the tank controls
like
is that.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about what has aged the worst, now we're going to say, well, what would we do differently?
Oh, man.
So if there's a thing about this game, what would you do differently about this? And if you want to think about it, I'll go ahead and start because I know exactly
you got your
what I would
answer,
do.
like
I would absolutely 100% take out those stupid tank controls. I know I just talked about it, but what I would have done is I would have modified it, and again, we're thinking about the limitations of the system at the time because this is the late 90s. I would have changed the tank controls completely. I would have gone with something that was
tied to camera,
either tied to the camera or even more, not necessarily a point and click, but if there was a way that you could basically go from room to room, like you could transition without having to
drive the tank there.
Like drive the tank there. Not necessarily be on rails like they did with some of the rail shooter versions or even like the Survivor version.
Right.
But I would definitely get rid of the tank controls and just, I want to go up, just let me hit up. I want to go left, just let me hit left.
Right.
I don't want to have to spin.
You know, the funny thing is again, like I mentioned that I had the remaster version, and you should try it because that option is in there.
I know it is.
It was off-putting.
It's very off-putting.
Of the camera. Again, like because the way the camera changes around.
I have played the remake with the tank controls turned off, and I actually strangely still enjoy it much better than the tank controls. I still feel like even with the camera shifts,
that's fair.
The good thing is that if
they
you
take up the slack though, because like if you hold the stick in one direction, it'll keep you going.
It'll keep the same input going for that character, which is super helpful. So that's what I would change. What about you? What would you do differently?
You know, it's funny looking at this game as a relic from its time. I don't imagine there would be anything like glaring that would change out, even with the tank controls, because that was new at the time and it worked. The story was hammy as hell, and I was fine with that. I feel like they made probably I think they made a really great game for the time, and I can't really think about anything like terribly glaring that I would remove or update. I mean, the thing is like with today's with my all the games I've played, there are things that you could upgrade, like say better camera or better graphics or tighter story. But it's like, is it fair to say to wish for those things to be changed in a game that had those resources like required for it? Mm-hmm. I feel like they did a pretty rock solid game, and this one in particular, I'm not sure if I would change anything with.
Okay.
I know one of our later episodes, we're going to talk about Silent Hill. Mm-hmm. And that one...
That may be coming soon, by the way.
Yeah, that one, I have things to say.
Yeah.
But this one, it was a good length. It had multiple characters, like branching playthroughs, right? Mm-hmm. You had can determine the fate of certain characters in the game. Mm-hmm. And it was literally up to you, like getting better at fighting zombies, running past them. So you had like the player got better. You didn't have this artificial like RPG system where it was like, now you've gained 50 XP points, you can shoot better. It was like, no, did you shoot that zombie good or didn't you? Mm-hmm. To me, I feel like all those systems all kind of gelled together in a really great like gem.
Okay, so
I would stand by that.
So you're saying you would say it's not perfect.
Sure.
But it's as good as it was going to be.
Yeah, as good as you can expect in that time frame. There was never a moment when I played it and I was like, oh, I wish they did X or Y.
Okay.
Right? So that's probably why I fell in love with the series in general. So
I'd say that's totally fair. Totally fair. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, now we're gonna shift gears a little bit and we're gonna talk about the voice acting in this game.
Oh, finally!
And we're gonna nominate our character, our favorite character for the first ever memorial trophy in this particular category. Who had the most over the top, hammiest, bad voice acting in the game? And I'm gonna hear the categories. Now this is gonna be
not
really
categories.
Here are the contenders. Here are the nominees for this particular award. We have my man Chris Redfield.
Oh yeah.
We have my lady Jill Valentine.
Oh man.
We got Barry Burton. We have Albert Wesker, and of course Rebecca Chambers. Now, there are only two other people that have any lines of dialogue in the entire game, but there's so few that they don't even really count.
The first guy's like, hey, look, and then he was dead, right?
And then he was dead. Well, actually, yeah, that's right. Joseph was like, come here, and then he gets killed.
Dead. Yeah.
So there's, I guess, three, because Enrico has a couple of lines, and then Brad has a couple of lines at the end.
Oh, man.
Out of those five, honestly, to me, look, I gotta be honest.
Tell me, bro.
It's got to be Barry Burton.
Oh man,
Barry has some of the
wrong in every possible way.
My God!
Tell me
this
Barry.
This dude.
Sell me. You have to sell me.
He has We're gonna talk about quotes in just in our very next category.
Oh, I love it already.
But some of the stuff that some of the stuff this dude says. I'm gonna for this episode we're gonna talk about this. So we also have our best quotes.
Right.
Okay. Here are some of the quotes from Mr. Barry Burton. That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich. He says right after he saves Jill from the trap. It's super iconic. The Jill sandwich. Let's see. We have Barry talking about his gun. He says, it's a weapon. It's really powerful, especially against living things. Come on. It's a gun. Whatever, okay?
No, it's great. No, I love it.
And then probably my favorite one, probably the most iconic one. There are a couple of more, but these are the ones that make my case for Barry.
Go ahead.
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you. It's just the way he delivers the line.
And see, to me, okay. That's good. He even as you read them back to me, I'm like, but you're missing the nuance.
Well,
of His Majesty Barry Burton of the North Hampshire Shire's Burtons.
So I'm an actor, but I could not willingly do it that poorly. I'm sorry. He gave it a game effort. He gets so good. He gets. So
he's like, I was gonna argue Rebecca Chambers because every line. To me, the cheese factor was through the roof. You get sprayed in the face as Chris, and she's like, "Oh no!"
Oh my God, the way that she screams, "Oh no!" It's so bad.
Cheesy. She does like 3 times, and every time I'm like, I just see the little sparkles, anime sparkles in her eyes whenever she's saying anything, and I'm like, Oh, Rebecca Chambers. I mean, like, she was... I don't know if you want to say overacting, but it was so charming. It cracked me up. Because in this game of zombie monsters trying to eat your face at all times, and Wesker, it was great whenever... It was always a surprise because, like you get caught by the freaking plant monster, and she's like, "Oh no!" Like the door opens up, and she goes, "Oh no, Chris!" And does her like, "Oh no!"
She freaks out. And
then,
she's got one pitch that she uses to like great efficiency.
Yeah. She's like 0 to 60 in like half a second, and I enjoyed that a lot. But you've made some really good points about Barry because he's got some real gems.
So how about this? You know what? I think you've convinced me. I think Rebecca Chambers. I think she had the worst. I mean, oh man.
We could say, Barry Burton for the classiest lines and delivering, and then Rebecca Chambers for the most passionate.
Okay, so we're gonna dub this the Rebecca Chambers Memorial Trophy for most over just the word passionate. There we go. Yes, passionate delivery. Rebecca Chambers Memorial Trophy. So it is written. So it is done.
And then Barry Burton. I mean, he had so many like little gems, nuggets to work with.
I will tell you, I don't think he had my favorite line of the game.
No, what was your favorite line?
So here we go. So there's a couple of more for our best quotes that we kind of melded. So the ones that I already said, and just to reiterate, that was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich. Then there's, it's a weapon. It's really powerful, especially against living things.
Yeah, right.
And then Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Right.
Then there's another...
It's like, let me tell you the story.
Oh my goodness, it's so bad. Then when Jill and Barry find Forrest out on the balcony where he's been pecked to death by crows.
Clearly, and it says that he's been pecked to death.
They say...
The text pops up.
Exactly. I'm going to find out what caused Forrest's death. It looks like he was killed by a crow or something. Because he was pecked to death. The text literally says
I love
that.
It. That's so good.
But then here is my best quote.
Oh, yes. I see it.
Is when Chris first enters the piano room. He tries to play the piano. He does it horribly.
No.
And then all of a sudden, Rebecca comes right in. She says... Chris, it's me, Rebecca. And Chris says, Is that you, Rebecca?
I thought that was in the first room. She sprays you with the mace.
No, it was when she comes back in. And
it does crack me up that she's literally armed with mace. I mean, because the only spray in the game is healing spray. So if you imagine that she was spraying you with something, you're just being healed. When
you're being healed. What?
And it's also funny that Special Forces team, Rebecca has... no handgun.
Actually, she does.
Oh, does she?
She does have a handgun.
Okay.
She has no additional ammo.
So somebody comes in the room, I have lethal weapon or I have spray on a zombie.
I want to say though that there's no enemies. Well, it could have been just it could have been that I also was killing as many zombies as possible with Chris.
Leave, there's a zombie under that stairwell. Like you can walk by him. He's so slow to react that I just bypass him half the time.
Every time he didn't get me. But
yeah.
So, I would say, is that you, Rebecca? That's my favorite one. Plus, I mean, I'm kind of a Chris stan, but at the same point, like. It's so obvious that the translation was
That's what you were meaning. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, that's part of the charm, man. You can't...
No, that's why... Hey, it's getting my vote for best quote. I mean, that's...
I'll second that. It's so ridiculous and
it's
obvious.
It's... Oh, my goodness. It's... Yeah, it's really bad. And it's kind of one of those things that, when you're actually playing it in the moment, you're like, wait, what?
Well, yeah, because you're like, happy to see another... thing that isn't a zombie, and then you're like, wait a second. At that point, you're like, whatever you're talking, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
you're not shambling at me.
Oh my god. Yeah, you're not a zombie. You're not trying to kill me.
Yeah, not walking at me really slowly with some brown pants on.
So, seeing that this is a game.
Yeah.
When you play a game, you finish it, you beat it, as opposed to you have won the game. Yeah. I would like to ask. As one of our final categories, who won this game? So our contenders for who won this game are zombies.
Okay.
The survival horror genre.
Uh-huh.
The special tactics and rescue service, otherwise known as STARS.
Oh, that's
Or Is it producer, director, writer Shinji Mikami?
These are just all scattershot, aren't they?
Who won this game?
Well, I'm gonna have to.
You can add if you can add if you want.
You definitely missed one of the biggest stars of the show. My man, your man, Iceman, Albert Wesker.
Oh,
because you know for a fact that he really won this game,
yes.
and that he didn't die. And he comes back with superpowers, and in the lore of the game, he just gets more and more ridiculous. And I love that they just keep... Every time you see him in another game, he gets even more freaking magical and more powerful.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't know who a good, compelling bad guy would be, but... because they keep trotting out the same guy, he just kind of like gets layered on all the cool things, in my opinion. So I feel like Wesker soars out of there.
You know what? I have to say for you've actually swayed me again. I have to say I think you're right. I think you make a very compelling argument. I think Wesker wins this game. I would say that
because he transcends the game just as much as the actual like survival horror genre.
Yeah, I would say a case could definitely be made for the genre itself, and for Shinji Mikami, who has gone on to kind of parlay this game and this series into other work like The Evil Within and some of the other partnerships that he's done. He also did Shadows of the Damned with Suda 5-1.
Oh yeah.
This is probably the most auteur video game designer that we've had in a while outside of Swery.
I don't know nothing about.
Don't worry. We're not
You're going into the realm.
I'm sorry. I'm dipping into the miasma of weirdness. But I think that for those two, you could definitely make a case, particularly for Mikami, who became kind of at the forefront of like the herald of this genre.
Honestly, the fact that he wasn't shit canned after this game and continue to make a bunch of games that brings me joy, I feel like that's a pretty good
I would say he's probably the first runner up.
But then Albert Wesker getting more and more ridiculous as you go along.
And
unwarranted too. Unwarranted.
Yes, this blonde-haired white asshole guy becoming...
He was getting business done, man. He was getting business done.
He had a vision, Matt. He wanted the tyrant to replace the human race, and it started with him. It all started with him.
There you go, man.
So, and now we're going to come to our final category.
Yeah.
Playable, barely playable, or unplayable. What would we give this game a final rating as? Would we say it's a playable game? Is it barely playable, or is it just unplayable?
Let me let you know. In the day it came out, this was cutting edge. This was the hottest mojo, the fastest magic, the best thing you could get, in my opinion, for the PlayStation at the time it came out.
But if it was released today,
minus the nostalgia, it'd be terrible. I mean, let's be fair though. I mean, like, we're talking about like, can you play this today? And I would say, that's close. It's close because the tank controls and camera make it real junk. But like, if you played it before, like just turning on that game, watching those mind-bogglingly great cutscenes. Like, I want to, like, even today, as much as I did before when I first played it, I want to play the game and get to that next cutscene, to get to that next like turn, that next like plot point.
Okay.
So I would say is still playable with the caveat that you have to really want it.
So or
have like the nostalgia keeping you there, because controls are nuts, and if you were to like drop right in after playing some like Halo or some Call of Duty, you're gonna look at this junk and go, "What is this turd?"
Yeah, to me that sounds like a textbook barely playable. Excuse me.
Right.
And I would have to agree.
Yeah.
The tank controls. I mean, even at the time, considering when it came out, we were there.
Yep.
There's actually a lot of dispute that this game actually took place in Colorado, which is funny because that's where we were living at the time. We were in Colorado.
Our Clay Mountains of Colorado.
Our Clay Mountains, baby.
Where did they? Raccoon City. I mean, it was just it was Midwestern America.
Yeah. There's also, I think some people also said that it could have potentially been in Pennsylvania because the Appalachian Mountains could. But for me, it was at the time. This was like there was almost a little bit of. Like state pride, and yes, the zombie apocalypse was happening here in Colorado, and at the time, it was definitely cutting edge for the genre. It was doing something completely different that nobody had ever done before, like in a way.
They presented the package in in my opinion, a way that you had not really seen on the console. Like PC, you might have had something kind of close. I can't remember, like the older horror games. You're right. I think you are right, because like the last thing you had was you had either your point and click adventures or your action games, but this was kind of a good blending of the two, and it had the accessibility of being on console. Yeah. So to me, that's like a real strong point in its favor. Yeah. In my opinion.
Yeah, I think definitely barely playable if it was released today. I just thinking about it.
You do gotta have a little bit behind it, and if you're okay with cheesy movies and you're all right with playing some like. Well, you played it again. You said it was pretty brutal, and it was an easy mode except for if you play as Jill.
Well, there was nothing wrong with Jill. I enjoyed the Jill campaign as well, because you get to see all the cool berry stuff.
Like, that's the thing. Is like, to me, I'm like, why would you call it easy mode? I'm glad they removed that connotation, because I'm a little offended now. For one, because I was like, how dare you? Right. But it's like that's twice the game. That's half of it right there is the Jill campaign. So to me. The fact that you would, like I see it as like two sides of the same story.
Yeah, I mean, Jill doesn't need to get the sword key. She can completely once she gets the lockpick, she can a sword door. She goes right through it. She doesn't have to find small keys to get the extra ammo from the little desks and stuff. Yep. So she gets the extra spaces. Like I could understand.
To me, it's like tankiness or utility. Because for sure, like when you get bit by a zombie as Jill, you're gonna have to heal yourself.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
So you have to get good at either doing tricks or juggling, or rather slaloming zombies.
Well, the other thing too is that it wasn't until the second game where they actually had you like react to the condition that you were in. So like it didn't matter.
Right, did you have to like hit the buttons, the sticks to like break free?
Yeah, you had to mash the buttons to get out. But however, like if you were in danger, like you still ran at full speed.
Right,
like
right. You weren't debilitated.
You weren't debilitated at all. Whereas in the second game, they introduced that where it basically
we gotta bring it back to don't make me do this. Do not make me spin sticks or tap buttons when I'm attacked. Don't do that.
He wants a bonus one, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't make me slap buttons when I'm being like attacked. I mean, it just takes your hands off the controls.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, and reflexively you just get to that point where you're just mashing buttons.
And then it just makes you like it. For me, it amplifies because I just get more mad. I'm like, why isn't it doing what I want? Pro controller.
Yeah. Well, let's not break that. Okay. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end. So, any final parting thoughts outside of the mashing buttons you want to give for Resident Evil 1?
It was. In my mind, a watershed game.
Yes.
In the global world stage and in my life. And even though we gave it a barely playable rating, I would recommend at least watching someone play it online. Maybe that'll be something we do back, or rather forward in the day, not back in the day. Maybe going forward we'll like have a little Let's Play of us too.
Yeah.
But I recommend anyone play it if you're at all interested in the Resident Evil series, because it's really great to see like the precursor, the originator of all the things. But that might just be my completionist like mindset speaking. How about you, sir?
I agree. I think, definitely it's a barely playable, but I think that if you have an interest in the series, particularly as a whole, playing the original version of this game is a great jumping point. I would almost probably say play the remake instead and maybe watch this one in terms of experience. However, I think its position in the lore of the series as the progenitor, as the one that started it, the one that kind of really codified the survival horror genre as a formidable genre on the console. I would say that's definitely something worth remembering and worth celebrating. So I would say play it if you want, but watch for those hunters and those damn tank controls. So that's going to do it for our show today. I certainly hope everyone's enjoyed it. If you want to listen to more, give us a like and a subscribe. Leave a comment below. And stay out on the lookout for the next episode, which will be coming next week. And we might have more survival horror for Spoopy Month. All right.